Broadcasting live 24/7, promoting culture and identity while empowering people to embrace their heritage and traditions across the nation. Google Radio, the voice of the future.
Yeah, thank you very much. Welcome, Dr. Hakim, again to our show. I think after a couple of months, last year or this year, beginning of the year, we make a show about the Arabic Juba. So it's very important. This show, yani, attach a lot of people understand Juba Arabic is very important. Our talk show today, and we are going to talk about which official exactly language as a South Sudanese language be official for us, because we have 64 different ethnic group of South Sudan in different states. As you know, map of South Sudan, we divide South Sudan in three regions. We have Equatoria, we have Bahr el Ghazal, we have Upper Nile. In Upper Nile, there is many tribes there, Shuluk and Nwe and some Dinkas, Anuak and Murle. All of them living in the Upper Nile. If you come to Bahr el Ghazal, there is there is a Dinka, there is a Balanda, there is a Dogo, Kresh, and so on, Bongo, and so on. In Equatoria, we have a lot of Azande, Bare, Didinga, Lutuko, Fujulu, and the rest, all 64 are living in different area. But the issue is, Doctor, confusing us. Some people talking something is very strange. For example, people from one state, if the majority, their language, they need their language to be official. So we heard this a lot in social media. A lot of people talk about it. I need to know your idea, experience about the language exactly can bring people all to be united. Go ahead.
First of all, Simon, I'm very pleased to be hosted here once more. Well, it's been a while, yeah, and I'm very pleased and honored to be on your talk show. So it's a great opportunity for us also to connect with our people in Juba, in the diaspora, across the globe. And of course, this is also a very important topic. South Sudan is more than 20 years old now since its independence. I mean, like more than 13 years since its independence, right? In 2011. And it's right to ask these questions as to where we are headed. And of course, some of the fundamental issues and questions that need to be revisited time and again is our national language. Because today, obviously, as part of history, we have taken on the Arabic language, we have taken on the English language before, even during the time of the Addis Ababa Agreement. But the question was raised and settled, at least partially, in that, English was adopted as the main language of business, the business of the government, the official business, and all of that. So English provided the primary vehicle for, say, for example, as a language of instruction in South Sudan. And the schools, were instructed to use English as a medium of instruction. When I was in junior secondary school, before that, we were using Arabic. And then when I went to senior secondary school, we were instructed in English, because I remember it was at the time of Matthew Abu. Matthew Abu was the Minister of Education. And he implemented the provisions for the Addis Ababa Agreement for English to be used as the medium of instruction in South Sudan, and therefore as an official language of South Sudan. That has not changed since very much. After South Sudan became independent, I think, this was just by default. English was more or less just confirmed as the main language of business, is the official language of the country. But this does not discard, the continuous use of Arabic Juba, for example. Arabic Juba was not declared as a non, sort of like, it's not a non English, like a non-status kind of language, but it continued to be the mechanism for, creating the social fabric and connecting our people. And it, has lived on and has been in our use for much longer than we can remember. So, yeah. So if it comes to the question of what is the official language of South Sudan, definitely the official language is Arabic Juba. Arabic Juba is the official language because the majority of the population in South Sudan speak Arabic Juba. If you look at it from the angle of our regional setup, like Equatoria, Upper Nile, and Bahr Ghazal, Arabic Juba predominantly grew up in Equatoria and spread to the rest of the country. So the influence has always been, around using Arabic Juba. And Arabic Juba, predominantly used by kids, by mothers, by many people. This is the common language that all the people in South Sudan speak, and without discrimination. And
Yes.
it is also,
there is common. We find a lot of people common about the, especially people in the majority in one state, for example. They think because they're speaking one language, they think maybe it be official in this state. For example, this is a good idea. If the one tribe, for example, is a majority in one state, to use the same their language, it be the official, is the good idea.
Yeah, I think there is a question, there is a tension here between, say, for example, promotion of heritage, and that is, a matter of right for all of the different social groups that, like, you just take the example of Equatoria. In Equatoria, there are over 35 different social groups. But primarily, you have, broadly speaking, you have, the Bari speaking, okay, you have Otuho speaking tribes, we have, Tobosa speaking communities, and so on. So you still can group these different social groups into affiliated communities that speak more or less the same mother tongue, right? So that being the case, there's nothing you can say about not investing in the promotion and development of those different, languages of these communities, if they, want to promote their identity, promote their culture and tradition and so on, right? But that would normally be, considered in terms of, if you base this on the, the experience of other countries, it's about promotion of cultural identity and heritage and so on, right? But there's a distinction between an official language, okay, an official language of business that can be used as a medium of instruction, as well as a medium of official communication, right? Because at the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to communicate to the population. You want to be understood. The state, the government, needs to transact business and more effectively, and having a means of communication with the population is very, very important. But where you have diversity in terms of population, you will have different ethnic groups, and you cannot choose to use only one language as official language. For example, we cannot say in Equatoria we have to use Bari as the official language of Equatoria, because like the official language of the region of Equatoria as a whole, because other significant social groups also exist in Equatoria who do not necessarily speak Bari, right? But there needs to be consent around what language should be the official language, and what other languages could also be promoted in the process, because there's no contradiction in terms of aligning the development of local heritage and official approaches. take the policies that was the policy that was introduced, before South Sudan became independent, even before when we were still in one Sudan, and even prior to that. Vernacular languages were being taught. Today, the Bible is written in our different languages, right? You'll find that the Bible is written in Didinga, in Kakwa, and so on and so forth, right? And at that time also, in fact, if you go to a local school, you are taught in your vernacular language, okay? You pick up writing your local language at the primary school level, right? It is taught, and you are able to. Many of our people who were ahead of us knew how to write their own language in using alphabet, using the Roman alphabet, right? So they were taught first of all to write in their own language, and then after that, they then started to do things, to write in English. Okay, so they were compatible in one or the other. It was not harmful in any way. It wasn't harmful. Now, when it comes to the question of the official language of South Sudan as a whole, right, that's a different question than the question of what should be the language in each of the states, right? Which, all of this, if we say we have 10 states, and then we have different languages in each state, different official languages in each state, then you will have the issue of communication between these different states. How are you going to communicate with each other, right? So that will also throw some more challenges. But so there should be an agreement on what should be the official language of the country, and without prejudice to the development of our local languages and heritage in our different states, right? But what we want to do is to bring people together. If that is the premise, you want to bring people together, then you want to have a common language, right? In the story of the Bible, what did the Bible say about the Babel? Yeah. People, people had to speak different tongues, right? And as a result, people were divided, right? The people were not able to communicate, understand each other, and so on, right? That was maybe something we can learn from, right? If you don't have a common language, then you cannot speak to each other, and so you cannot find common ground that unites.
Yes, make it harder. Just, Doctor, I want to add something about this, because really it's very important. I saw a lot of movies by the tribe, any group of people, to make movie, make music by own language. They're pushing this agenda in podcasts like this, people talking their language, communicate with each other. For how the unity could be in South Sudan, if there is unity is coming or not, if we still continue on this behavior. What is your thought?
Yeah, I think there's always this tension between promoting your heritage, like say for example, what you've just highlighted, that people speak in their own language, they do podcasts in their own language, and so on and so forth, right? That facilitates for ease of communication and people being understood within a small, context, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that means you exclude the rest of the population. You are only focusing on that specific social group, using that specific language for that particular group. So it's an exclusive thing. And then you're kind of like inward looking. So there are pros and cons of this. The pros, is that you're communicating in your community with a language that everybody understands and takes for granted. Okay, so your communication is easier. And the subject that you talk about is also made easier for anyone in that community to pick up, to understand, and to relate to, right? And also to be able to participate. So those are the kind of positive, sort of like aspects of it. Now, then you also, on the other side, you're excluding the bigger, broader community of which you are part, because you are closing yourself onto yourself, right? So as to what extent should you continue to do this? Because there are benefits in that you want your community to understand, to communicate, to express themselves, and so on, right? And even to address issues, local issues, which are more specific to that community. But if you have in a state where you have other communities, then the difficulty is that you're going to exclude these other communities because you're now only focusing on your own community, right? So you're excluding them from, so your agenda is more sort of like narrowed. Your agenda is narrowed to your community. It's not inclusive of, the community, the rest of the communities. But always also sometimes the benefit is also that if there is something that we share, all of us sharing, and how you want to communicate that more effectively to your community so that they can understand this global thing, this bigger thing. This is where the local language becomes very important, because you are now communicating to your people, to that community in their own language, and they will understand the issue better. And they will have the opportunities to also to feel and to react to that and participate in the discussion or in the debate about the issue. Okay.
No, look, doctor. I mean, if the group of people they talk with by their own language, yaman bonus be or tante toman mangi bonus bo. Yala, what about the another almage faimu language ta jamade magi bonus vishunu? They might be affected or hell haja de mapa aser for unity tena ka South Sudanese. Ne anu anaga ainu nas bigger division bigger too much.
Right.
Okay, fani burubu tu mabad iza inu inni gabila uwa biga masaka nafsa toto bas fi kona muayan. Go ahead.
Yeah. There is what is the purpose? What's the purpose of like these podcasts? Are they community based? Are they like, say for example, driving towards a common agenda with the rest of the population, or is it that they're just focusing on their community? Because there are certain issues that can also generate conflict, right? They can promote conflict. They will divide people and divide the country more along ethnic lines. Okay, so those are also some of the how you use your kind of setup to promote being different from the others, or trying to use your sort of like heritage to dominate, say for example, other people, right? So what is the intention? What is the intention of you using your language? Is it just for normal communications and promotion of the welfare of the community, or is it to serve a certain political agenda? Because there are issues that are, like say in a country, in a diverse country like ours, you want to build bridges and make people to understand each other more, right? And communicate freely and openly, right? So that they can participate regardless of where they come from and so on. They're citizens of the same country, okay? But if you start to just only focus on your own community, then you're actually, not helping the bridging of these different communities to come to a common understanding.
Unity, yes.
So that is the danger. That's the danger. So it is, what's the purpose of promoting, the language? What's the purpose? Is it to address certain political objectives? Because if you're using that for political mobilization, in respect of just yourselves, and not as part of the broader agenda of the country's transformation, then that we have talked about, say, for example, in the past about domination. We have had experience, for example, people are talking about Dinka domination in Equatoria, right? Or Dinka politicians, for example, were saying that they are born to rule. This is something that everybody will probably relate to and understand that, in the past, conflict was driven among our different communities because of this. Okay. And as a result, you create a situation where there is tension in the country whenever, different communities can't coexist because there is competition, there is rivalry, and so on. So what it serves then is division, diversity and division of the country on the major issues of, how you want to run and manage the country. So I'll give you one example here. Like, say, in the UK, the official language is English, okay? But in a country like Wales, which is part of the UK, they're using the Welsh language because in the particular region of Wales, majority of the people wanted to, and culturally and historically, they used their language, and then English was brought in. But then the two languages have to coexist, which meant that you invest in the development of the language, in supporting of the language in Wales without prejudice to the official language. It's not because you want a communication. You want communications. If more people now speak English, then you are not excluding everyone from speaking, but from understanding what's happening in the country and so on. But where before people didn't connect with English, and the government was far away and so on, then communicating to them in their language would be understandable, because you want to get the message to them in their own language so that they can understand the benefits, but without necessarily saying that English should no longer be the official language. So in our case, sometimes our context, which allows for people to become more like focused on their own tribe, for example, or social group, then you find that it is being abused. So there is opportunity to abuse the system and make it to support integration as opposed to supporting people coming together.
Yes, let's go to short break and then we're coming back soon.
Hasuma korende moyo enagikumu ya udom tenina bekalasu yagi kore mat ningi ning ning shabab junuki kore swangi kore arnina bigata mani min kalam ta dunia nde enata itabani minainu wajan patalio adana ta itabani minasuma kalamu batali ya zaman ya jama baba yawe anina bikurile ta baba tali saidunina ainu ya tenina bimutu ainu tom tenina kikubu ainu nina bezbikini katulu badu tenina barau Yagwanale. We need peace. Oh, we need love. We need peace among ourselves. We need love. Hey, yani kore good. Mat ningi ning ning good. Shabab junuki kore good. Nuswangi kore good. Kila chikop iya haja suia. Kila chikop na vigene katulu bado tumon barabara uteile junubi. Ya kwana lazim kilini na ainu meskita masakine. Aldumu tumon bikubu umoza tumindu zambi. Mindu zambi. We need peace in our country. We need love. I say we need love. We need peace in our country. We need love. We need peace in our country. We need love. Among ourselves. Kanina fekiri geni falata. Kanina fekiri geni falata. Ashan kalamde kulu bihilu. Ya jama pelete deteina. Mafi sultani bija walk give nina. Ile nina be walk give baduta nina parao. Let's love one another. Peace and harmony in our land, South Sudan. Peace. We are crying for peace. And this is a time. We don't need to kill ourselves. WJ the King, Lord Kulele Kingdom. Better forever and ever. One love. Let's stop the fight.
Yeah, thank you very much, WJ King, for a beautiful song about the peace and unity in South Sudan. Yeah, well, still, Dr. Hakim, we're talking about the official language of South Sudan, how we use the language, our language, our own language in our place. Yeah, just, Doctor, before we go further, just I'm going to ask you about the official language for the different state. For example, we say they can help people to understand, to communicate each other, to understand more easier. For example, like a campaign, political campaign or something like that. So I need to know, give us your thought. If I'm from someone from Western Equatoria, for example, Azande language, we can say Azande majority said there is Zande, it be the language official in the state for communication. What do you think in all general, all South Sudan?
I think it's not a case of saying because the majority are Zande, for example, in Western Equatoria, and therefore the official language should be Zande. What about these other communities that also live in Western Equatoria who are not necessarily a majority? So it should not be a question of majority or minority. There's no one who is a majority of another, or there's no one who is a minority of another. Because you are all equal citizens, and it's about the future that you want to build. The whole premise of this is that politics is about living together. Okay, you are living together. You could be different communities, but want to live together, and that cannot come at the cost of saying, this particular language should be used because the majority in this state are Azande, or that the majority in this state are Jain. And this is not to say that, for example, these communities should not develop their languages, okay? At the community level, that is what the language, they can promote that language. They can promote Zande, they can promote Baka, Kakwa, and so on. So you have equal rights. All of these cultural groups have equal rights about their cultural heritage, right? So if you take, say, for example, in Equatoria, okay, in Yei, if that is exclusively, or the majority of the people there are Kakwa, you can't stop them using their language in communication because it's part of their identity, right? It's part of their identity. But what's important is that if there are other communities that also live there, you don't impose it that Kakwa should be the official language.
Yes,
right?
that is the point I'm looking for. It.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you cannot say that the Kakwa should be the official language, and therefore, what about these? Just because there are more Kakwas there, and therefore the language should be by themselves. They are already speaking Kakwa anyway, right? So why do you have to make it, official for all of the state? So you can adopt a policy, of course, like what we said. Yal Sugar fi Bush schools tend to go to school there and learn the alphabet in their language, okay? مثلا كانوا من بيجا جونسو أو جا كتب أجري يعني vernacular تومون بلغة تومون تابل it's a good thing. You're promoting their identity. You're promoting them to feel proud of their identity, of where they come from, and they will always identify with that heritage. أصله ما في مشكلة. لكن at the state level, the state is supposed to be providing for all of the citizens. The state does not belong to one particular ethnic group.
Yes.
The state belongs to everybody in that state without discrimination. And so what the state should do is to be inclusive of all of the citizens, of all of their cultures, of all of their different identities. Okay? And that's why, like, say, if you use an official language, say Arabi Juba is official language in Equatoria. So, and it integrates other different languages than that. يعني في كلمات في عربي جوبا انت بتلقوا انه كلمات دي جاء من شنو؟ جاء من قبائل ثانيين مختلفة. اخذ مثلا زي نيامونا مش بقى جزء بتاع عربي جوبا وجاء من كابوسا. وفي جيك ولا في كلمات من باري
باتا قالوا نعمل باتا
يا وفي كلمات جا من كوميونيتي زي الكل جا دخل نفسه تومون في عربي جوبا. انت ما بعرف انه ده شنو، ده جا من وين. في تانيين جا من فجلو، في تانيين جا من وين. So this kind of process of integration حاصل. So it is the Arabi Juba is capable to pull in influences from all of these different communities. وثانيا بقى ناس كله anyway going to Arabi Juba بقى. يعني عربي طبعا the main source لكن يتغير بطريقة زي سواحيلي هسه جاء طالع شنو؟ طالع بقى شنو؟ اللغة الرسمية لكينيا.
كينيا yes.
صح؟
Eastern Africa
almost as a whole, right? So Arabi Juba has already reached that status في جنوب السودان. يعني هسه أي محل في maybe في محلات تانية أنت ما بتلقوا فوق ناس جونس عربي جوا، لكن غالبية بتاعت جنوبيين جونس عربي جوا. بتعرفوا؟ So فأنت بتقدر تقول إنه عربي جوا بيقدر يكون شنو official language, and then you can see it does not discriminate against any particular language. It accepts influences from all of these different languages.
All language, yes.
So بالتالي لأنه already غالبية بتاعت الناس قاعدين يتكلموا عربي جوا, and it has a long history, just like all of these other communities. Just only that, I know the language of a specific community is not understood by all of the communities. And so you cannot impose it. Like because of historical reasons, Arabi Juba, Bada bringing these different communities to speak the same language, so that it has become a common language. It has acquired this status with time. يعني عشان كده انت بتقول انه عربية مثلا ممكن يجي شنو official language في الاستوائية، حتى لو كان في regions ثانيين ده وما official، انت بتقدر تعمل ويبقى شنو official language في الاستوائية. Because يا قاعدين يكلموا عربي جوبا، اي زول بعرف انا عربي جوبا. So اللقاح بتاع حاجات كتير influences too many influences from other communities.
Yes.
الحاجه اللي انا عاوز اقول شنو انه في ستيت واحد كان في فوق 3 ولا 4 ولا 5 communities. اوكي you preferably use عربي جوبا. انت بقدر use عربي جوبا. This is our context. يعني انت بيuse عربي جوبا، الناس بقدروا ينسوا عربي جوبا.
طيب الستيت اللي بيكون one language، إذا كان في state majority هم بيتكلم the one language، how can it be? They still
Which state, for example? Which state?
Yeah, ممكن نقول northern Barkazal, something like that, or sometimes Lake State, ممكن some of them. So Upper Nile and some area like Western Barkazal, this is a different place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they are not using, say, for example, Arabic Juba, and they're using their own local language in those areas, في يعني انت ممكن تقدر تعمل stats or census تشوف how do you communicate with these communities? Do you communicate with them in English? Do they understand English? Even though English is declared as the official language of the state, the official language of the business of the government. Okay, but is English actually actively being used to communicate with these communities? So it becomes an operational challenge. So if it is not feasible, يلقى في مدرسة وبيشيل وقت طبعا for development to take place in order for more and more people to speak English, provided that English is being taught as a medium of instruction, for example في state ده. Okay, so كان قلت كلامه له أي حاجة official دوم بيحتاج لشنو؟ بيحتاج لحاجات كتير جدا. يعني انت عاوز تطبع حاجات بروتاندا كويس، يعني كتابة كان في الراديو ولا كان في شنو في حتى في الشغل تاع حكومه وكده وشنو. معناه انت قاعد تقول انه شنو مثلا انت في حكومه انت بتشتغل بشنو باللانجوج تاع الستيت ده كويس، لازم يكتبوا كان في البرلمان كان يستعملوا and so on. Okay, and any business of the government has to be done in that local language. Okay, so that is the intention of saying, okay, because لأنه الناس غالبية الناس هنا مثلا that can be used as a reason لأنه غالبية الناس ده هناك جونسوا مثلا دينكا. Okay, just for the sake of argument جونسوا دينكا, and therefore you want to communicate them to them more effectively using the Dinka language. Okay, in this case, will this actually achieve the operations to Hakuma as a whole, as a government? Will you be capable of communicating and conducting business in Dinka in that state? You could say, okay, yes, because we all speak the same language, so we can communicate with the same language, the business of the government and so on. Lakin, how would you document things? How would you في حاجات كتير تا قوانين وشنو قوانين ده كله انت بحاول ترجمه لشنو لدينكا بيجا. Okay, and then it's going to be a challenge provided that انه مثلا في area ده كله community براو يقولوا يعني language واحد يعرفوا فوق ما 2 or 3 or 4 languages, because it will not be fair to have your own language and the languages of the other communities هناك مثلا is not also given the same treatment. It will be unfair for other communities not to receive the same attention in terms of development of their language, because you are now moving all the state resources to concentrate on the development of this particular language. Like that, لو كان حصل زمان من بدري, then we would have found it as a reality on the ground. But because that's not the case, but now you can't do that. But still, there is an argument بيقول انه لازم حكومة يكون very clear and transparent to the community. يعني اخذ مثلا زي زمان قبل لسه حاجه بيسموها حكومه ده ما في، لكن ما كان احنا عندنا تشيفز مش كده؟ احنا كان عندنا سلاطين، وسلاطين ده في بلد they manage the administration of the tribe, they communicate، يعني ده ذاته زي حكومه. يعني ده ذاته شنو؟ ده لكن حكومه شنو؟ حكومه community داك دي براه. ده chiefs and chiefdom ده حكومه بلد بس. Like, because now we want to bring all of these other different communities together, then we have to search for something which is common.
Common, yeah.
For all of us, right? Yeah, and that also I was like saying Arabujuba is a perfect model, is a perfect example of what could be the official language of the country. Okay? Because you can also develop it faster, because
you mean it be an official language of communication, especially in South Sudan in general.
So it already is spoken by the majority of the people, which is the same argument that is used in some of the states where one community is predominant, or rather the majority, like they have more, or just even the whole state can just be one from one community, and so they can argue that madam de kullu in بيقدر use language تاعنا ذاته في state ده مش كده. But at a smaller scale, the other difficulties and challenges of resources to use the language in the different channels of government, in the different institutions of government, in schools, in hospital, for example, if you want to talk about medicine, how would you communicate to the local people about modernity, حاجات البيجا حديث؟ شفت كيف؟ It will create more challenges to how would you can't ask you teachers or the doctors, you have to bring teachers and doctors who are only from that community. Yani, how would they teach these people, for example, science or mathematics, or they haven't developed the system. How are you going to be able to do all of these multidisciplinary things, be documented and all of that? It's going to be a huge challenge. It's not easy. Lakin, with time, what you can say is, first of all, focus on development of the language, to promote it as a heritage, to use it in, to give it the ability to foster some of these, modern concepts, to modernize the language itself. With time, and then later, once that language is capable of, being used as a language for science, as a language for mathematics, as a language for medicine, as a language for, then, and there is also a lot more documentation in terms of literature or kida. معلش بعد ذاك, you can now say the language is developed to the extent that it can actually function, like a modern day language. عشان كده احنا قاعدين نقول احنا we are in the same trajectory. مثلا we're talking about Equatoria, about the Arabujuba. Arabujuba can be modernized, and also because you want to use it for education, you want to use it for music, you want to use it for all of these different disciplines. It بيجي عاوز اعمل شنو؟ لازم اعمل law to become يعني standardized. يعني عشان كده مثلا زي كان انت عندي كيبورد انت بقدر كاتبه عربي جوبا، انت بقدر كاتبه كان انت راسله الجواب بتاعك باي ايميل ولا كان واتساب ولا كان موبايل وكده. ده بقى مودرنايزيشن بتاع عربي جوبا. اوكي زي ده تبقى بيستعملوا زي انجلش لانجويج زي Arabic and official Arabic and so on. بتاعنا. So you want to be in that sort of position. So and you can see the same requirement will have to apply to a local language. يتعينوا. I have experimented with some of these concepts. مثلا زي انا اعمل شنو في language تا ديدينغا. اوكي في حاجات ساينس ما في فوقه لانه ما كان في بلد عندنا في institutions ساينس ولا institutions ما في. So concept science ده في لكن بصوره مبسط. So انت كان عاوز اعمله اخذ مثلا زي يقول نسبه حاجه كم. Like I want 50% of the I want to count how many children are there in Didinga, for example. What is the proportion of the children to the rest of the population? ممكن كم؟ مثلا في جنوب السودان قاعدين نقول almost half of the population are youth. كويس؟ أنا كان جوني سؤال Didinga أنا كان قال what is the proportion of women in the whole of Didinga or in the whole of Kakwa? Right? You talk about that in percentages. Okay? You say, for example, the women in Kakwa as a tribe, there are, maybe 40% are women and 60% are men. Okay? Now, how can you say that in Kakwa language itself? 40% are women and 60% are men. Can you say that in Kakwa? Can you translate it to Kakwa? You speak it in Kakwa?
Any language, yeah. There is not except English. English and Juba.
Okay. So what I did was I tried to introduce the concepts of percentages. يعني 0. مثلا 0 أو مثلا حتى even the decimal points حاجات زي 0.5 أو 0.3. تبكلم كيف بكاكوا ولا بديدينغا 0.3. Because we didn't develop the decimal system. We can count 1 2 3 4 5 10 20 30 100 وكده. لكن لما النمبر زي يبقى كبار خالص sometimes أنا ما بعرف how to count this, right? So you have to start to think about the foundational concepts. يعني it has to go down to 0.3 in the dinger. So you have to teach these mathematical concepts at the foundational level. These modern concepts can also be translated into the local language so that you can now start to use local language just like English, just like any other language, modern language. So it is a challenge. It's not going to be easy. Even if you say that you want to use it as an official language because the majority, it's not going to be very effective. Maybe, first of all, it will fail to bring people together. That's number one. Number two, it will not be able to address all of these challenges. Where are you going to get the money to develop the language? And unless only like you say this is the majority is the Azande or the majority is the Bari, then only the Bari have to, contribute money to develop the language and to implement it in government, while the other communities will not contribute. Or are you going to force the other communities to pay taxes in order to develop the Bari language?
It does not work like this. Yeah.
It will not work. So those are some of the challenges, and people have to think through. You have to study. You have to maybe do a research first. You have to present. the outcome of your research and convince people that, this language can be an official language of the state, and taking into consideration all these other views and ideas of other people, because you're not living in an island. يعني انت ما براك كويس. فده حاجات كتير في يعني حاجات كتير you have to consider. ما بس كده okay we are the majority and then that's it. We are going to we need to have this as the official language of the state. It's not that easy.
Dr. Hakim, thank you very much for this conversation. أنا بشكرك في ونسو بتاعنا وأنا بقول للمشاهدين بتاعنا whatever you are. And we just bring this word because for the unity and seek unity and طبعا there is unity between us as South Sudanese. Yes, it's okay for you. مثلا مثلا language بتاع يمكن يكون between your tribe, you can speak your language, it's okay. لكن ما بتoppose لothers. يعني مثلا ده oppose في media أو كيف others ممكن يfollow يتاتاكي. ده بيكون في قطر ده بكل division بتاعنا بيكون more wide. So طبعا ما دايرين نتكلم politics في حاجات دي. بنشكر دكتور حكيم from UK وعبد السلام باشا من استوديو جوجل راديو وانا نسمع الناشونال انثم بتاع ساوث السودان. Okay. Thank you very much للمشاهدين بتاعنا. وهذا كان نيجان ونسو بس موضوع بتاع language official بتاع ساوث السودان. وهذا من عارفين طبعا عربي جوبا هو ده language اللي بيلموا ناس ما بكتو ناس بيجيني برا براو. وهذا كان سايمون باشا معكم من استديو جوجل راديو وانا بقول باي باي وانا بليمو في زمان تاني.